How do you analyze a modern political figure? Well, today we're diving into a source that suggests using a 19th century philosopher to do it. Sounds wild, right? But it all boils down to one single contradiction.
So check this out. This is the puzzle right at the heart of the source material. On the one hand, you've got this really dramatic personal story, a 10:30 a.m. meeting, but then you have the official government record. Dry, boring, but time-stamped hours later at 2:21 p.m. So the big question the source is asking is, what really happened in that 4-hour gap?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with this idea of political performance, then grab the Nietzschean toolkit the author uses. We'll see how it works when someone's under pressure, compare the performance to the reality, and see why, in the end, receipts always beat rhetoric. And finally, we'll talk about what this means for all of us.
Okay, so back to that big question. How do you solve a puzzle like this? Well, the source suggests we're asking the wrong thing. Instead of asking who's telling the truth, what if we shifted our perspective completely and analyzed the whole thing as a deliberate performance?
And this is a really important idea in the article. It's saying, hey, this isn't just about fact-checking a single claim. If you really want to understand what's going on in modern politics, you need a totally different set of tools, ones that can decode the meaning behind the show.
And this is where things get, well, pretty fascinating. That new toolkit, it comes from a pretty unexpected place. The 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah, you heard that right. The source basically dusts off his ideas and uses them like a set of X-ray goggles to see what's really going on.
So the first tool from this kit is a concept Nietzsche called ressentiment. Now, the source defines this as a politics that's all about grievance. Think of it like this. The main goal isn't to build something positive. It's all about tearing down anything that gets in the way. Critics, government oversight, even just tough questions. And look, this isn't just the author throwing ideas at the wall. There's a clear 4-step method here. First, you watch the performance, then you find the contradiction, that weak spot. Third, you bring in that Nietzschean lens we just talked about. And all of that is to reveal a consistent, predictable pattern of behavior. All right, so let's put this toolkit to the test. The source first uses it to look at a classic political situation. What happens when a public figure's story gets challenged? When they're put under some serious pressure. And to illustrate this, the source points to a really intense quote. One that was made when the public scrutiny was at an all-time high. It's a quote that definitely got people's attention, not just locally, but around the world. So how does the source read that kind of language through its Nietzschean lens? Well, it argues this isn't a show of strength at all. It's the complete opposite. It's like a confession of weakness, a signal that you've lost control of the story and you're lashing out. Now, the source links all this pressure back to one specific event, and it all centers on this number, 125 million pesos.
So what is that? Well, according to the article, that's the amount of confidential funds spent by the Office of the Vice President, the OVP, in just 11 days. And it was the political firestorm that followed, the source says, that created this intense pressure cooker environment we're talking about.
All this pressure really highlights the next big theme in this analysis, that growing canyon between the public image someone builds, the performance, and what the documents actually say. The source points out several of these public personas. You could even call them masks or costumes. These are very specific roles, right? Like the silent worker or the strong mother. Each one is designed to tell a certain story to the public. That includes playing the role of defender for her father against the International Criminal Court, or ICC. But then, the source slams those masks right up against a very different reality. And here's the kicker that the article really hammers home. This brutal assessment, a complete failure, it reportedly didn't come from a political rival. It came from the palace's own press office. Okay, this is it. This is where the whole analysis really comes to a head. The author circles all the way back to that first puzzle we talked about and makes a really powerful point. Verifiable records, the receipts as we call them, they will always slice right through the most dramatic story. And this timeline, wow, it just lays that contradiction out for everyone to see. On one side, you have the emotionally charged story of a 10:30 a.m. meeting. And on the other, you have the cold, hard fact of the official palace log showing a 2:21 p.m. resignation. The source argues there's just no way to make those two stories fit together. So what's the big takeaway from this, according to the author? It's simple, but it's huge.
Having a strong personality is not the same as having a strong argument. A dramatic performance, no matter how convincing it seems in the moment, just completely falls apart when you hold it up against a verifiable time-stamped record.
But what does this all mean for us? The source doesn't just want to analyze one person. It's asking a much bigger question. Why does this way of thinking, this whole framework, matter for us as citizens? And this, right here, is the ultimate lesson the source wants us to walk away with. The spotlight suddenly shifts from the person on stage to the audience, to you and me. The argument is that demanding facts, checking those receipts, and just thinking critically, that's not just a nice idea. It's our fundamental duty as citizens. And so, the source leaves us with one last, really challenging question. It's a question that honestly applies to anyone, anywhere, who's watching the news or scrolling through social media. In this huge theater of politics, are we just going to clap for the mask, or are we going to demand to see the actual work?